question is from somebody who didn't provide their name, but it was a voicemail. And this was the question. I was diagnosed with MS about 15 years ago, and I haven't taken any of the medication that my doctor wanted me to take. And for the last year or two, I've noticed more weakness in my left leg. And I've eliminated dairy, grains, gluten. I'm not sure what else I should do at this point. I'm not sure if I should try acupuncture. What can I do to restore my body? Well, MS is an autoimmune disease of your nerves, and it can affect your entire body. It can cause all sorts of havoc, including nerve damage, prevents you from walking, bladder problems, and it can be devastating and even deadly. So let me tell you about my friend and colleague, Dr. Terry Walls. She's a doctor who was diagnosed with MS, and she used the power of functional medicine and food as medicine to manage and treat her MS. She actually used the hunter-gatherer diet, basically what they call paleo, to create her own food plan, and went from using a wheelchair to actually participating in and completing an 18-mile bike tour. She literally couldn't even sit up by herself. She could barely work anymore. She was highly dysfunctional, and she really changed her diet, which led to a dramatic change in her biology and literally reversed her MS. And now she's lecturing all over the world. She has a TED Talk that's had millions of views. I'm going to provide a link to the TED Talk so you can see some of her work. There really are a number of things that we do to fix MS. It's mostly looking for the cause. Hidden infections, viruses, molds, food sensitivities and allergies, gut problems, we call dysbiosis or imbalances in gut and leaky gut. And there's a lot of things you can do to optimize your diet. Basically, a diet that's high in healthy plant foods, high in fat, low in sugar, no grains, no beans, and she outlines this in her book, The Walls Protocol, which is a really great book. She came to Cleveland Clinic and did amazing grand rounds for us and taught physicians, medical students. It was really quite astounding what she showed in her case. Now, other things are important, like vitamin D deficiency. Those have been linked to MS and other neurologic issues. Exercise is critical. Finding ways to reduce stress, getting great sleep. All these things are simple things you can do. And if you're really stuck, you need to go see a functional medicine doctor, have them help you figure it out. So nobody wants to hear their doctor say the words multiple sclerosis or any autoimmune disease for that matter. It's scary, and that's real. But it's also manageable and often fixable.
Hey guys, Dr. Berg here. Listen, I want to talk about what I would do if I had MS, multiple sclerosis. First of all, what is it? It's really a dysfunction of myelin. Myelin is that outer covering, that sheath, that fat layer around the nervous system. It's kind of like an insulator of a wire, okay? And that thing, you're losing that, and then you're getting all sorts of neurological issues. What's interesting is it follows the same process as atherosclerosis, which is basically hardening of the arteries, because the word sclerosis comes from the Greek word which means hardening, okay? So it's the same process. There's theories out there that it's coming from an infection, a microbe, or it's genetic, but they don't know. My thought, it's a dysfunction in the lipids, because the production of myelin is very connected with the production of cholesterol. It takes cholesterol to make myelin. And also the synapses that communicate together in the brain and the nervous system are very dependent on cholesterol. So there must be some type of dysfunction with cholesterol. Well, there is. In some of the other videos, I talk about the origin of what causes hardening of the arteries. I'll put a link down below, but personally, I think it's the exact same thing that's happening in the brain. Let's take a look at the first thing that happens. You have a lesion or some type of ulcer, and then you get this inflammatory process. Along with that comes a white blood cell immune type connection. So you have white blood cells, you have inflammation. The body's then going to bring plaque to the area. Now, plaque is mainly collagen, and it's like fibrous tissue. Then comes cholesterol. And all that's trying to do is trying to heal something. So the interesting thing is, like, what is behind this whole process from the origin? What's the cause of it? Well, if we look at, okay, you're losing myelin, there's an impaired glucose to the brain. So there's the glucose is not going in the brain. That's a common denominator. And there's nearly always insulin resistance, which happens to degrade and break down myelin. So really, I think from the obvious things that we talked about, it's really a a problem with insulin, so we have high insulin. Now, you could have high cortisol from stress that can actually cause high insulin, and that's probably another deeper cause because there is antibodies connected to this as well, and that's usually adrenal. But we have a situation, we have high insulin, inflammation, and plaquing. And so now, what would I do if I had this condition? I would instantly do the ketogenic diet. Why? Because that would feed the body ketones as fuel, that would feed the brain ketones, and it would create such a relief on this whole starvation of glucose that your brain would start coming alive. Now, I've checked, if you look at the relationship between MS and ketogenic diets, there's a lot of studies done with significant improvement. So if we can cut down the inflammation in the brain by running the body on ketones and no longer on sugar, because sugar creates inflammation, and we can fix insulin resistance, we can drop the inflammation down and greatly improve the brain function. So, hey, Dr. Berg here again. In this video, we're going to talk about autoimmune conditions. It's a very complex situation for most people. There's basically autoimmune is the body is developing antibodies, which are things immune-wise that attack your own tissue. So it's kind of like having an allergy to your own tissues. So if you had autoimmune of the thyroid gland, it would be called Hashimoto's, where your cells, your immune cells, are killing off your own thyroid and they're creating inflammation. Or if you have another type of thyroid condition called Graves, where your body is attacking itself. Or sarcoidosis, where your body has antibodies against your lungs. Or you have MS, multiple sclerosis, where you have antibodies against your own nervous system. Or lupus, against the connective tissue in your body. Or rheumatoid arthritis, you have antibodies against your own joints. Or Cushing's, you have antibodies against your own adrenal glands. So I want to just kind of take this complex problem and dissect it. One of the things that I do for complex problems is I'll take one piece of the problem and I'll try to figure it out, and then usually that will help me look at other areas of the problem, so eventually the whole thing can be understandable. So I want to take one little piece of the autoimmune and try to understand it more. So let's just take one point about the autoimmune conditions. If you take any autoimmune conditions, which I've had hundreds and hundreds of people come in with autoimmune conditions, and I always ask them, when did it start, to get the clue? And they always tell me it happened after a stress event, and I found that very interesting. Usually after a loss of a loved one, a divorce, a severe injury, a loss of a job. So it's definitely triggered by a stress thing, okay? So stress can activate autoimmune. I've never found a condition where they didn't have something like that. And losses are 1,000 times more stressful than any physical trauma that could ever be. That's why people can get stuck in a loss for many, many years and grieve and cry and things like that. So it's very, very, very stressful, okay? Now, number two, how are autoimmune diseases treated? Well, one of the most common treatment they use is cortisol or prednisone. What is that? That's adrenal hormones. So now we got two situations. We got stress and what's treated with the adrenal hormones. What gland does stress affect on the body? The adrenals. So really, those losses, those stressful events, severely damage the adrenal gland. The treatment for autoimmune is adrenal hormones. Well, right there, now we're starting to unravel this mystery and make this a little bit less complex. Now, let's get into, because the autoimmune conditions are immune-related, let's take a look at what controls your immune system. What parts of your body? Well, you have the thymus gland, you have the spleen, you have the bone marrow, you have the gut. But did you know the adrenal gland controls the immune system as well? Yeah, the adrenal gland controls the white blood cells. In fact, I'm reading right now biological actions of the adrenal hormone, cortisol. It says that the adrenal glands release antibodies from the lymph nodes, and they create a decrease. If the adrenal glands are overworking, they will create an overall decrease in antibody production. Interesting. And also, when you have a dysfunctional adrenal, you will lose the barriers to the immune system, and it makes your body more susceptible. That's interesting. So, based on these three things, autoimmune conditions are really adrenal situations, even though they affect the different tissues. So, when people have Hashimoto's, for example, they'll start treating the thyroid, but they never look at the adrenal. They never look at the stress part of this. When I think about adrenal, I'm really thinking just about stress, accumulation of stress in the body. So I think really what causes autoimmune is a stress state, which then causes the adrenal gland to dysfunction and causes a loss of control of the immune system because it lowers your susceptibility, and all sorts of things can happen when you do that because you have no more barriers to the immune system. So you could have microbes come out, viruses come out of remission, and just hammer that gland. And you can have all sorts of dysfunctional things. So that's my 2 cents on what causes autoimmune. Now, what I'm going to recommend for you, if you have an autoimmune condition, is do an experiment on yourself. Talk with your doctor and start to go in the direction of improving your own body stress and just see what happens to your condition. See if you can put this condition back in remission, because a lot of these conditions can go in remission, which means they're more viral. Start to do things to improve stress rather than treat the condition directly with drugs and things like that. Just my recommendation. You don't have to do it, but I'm just telling you that I've seen good success with, instead of treating the condition, reducing the stress state, changing the environment, doing things to get over that loss of a loved one. And you may find that these conditions greatly improve. Okay? So I hope that helped you. I will see you in the next video.
I wanted to do a video today about restless leg syndrome. It sucks. Basically, what it is when you are laying down, it basically happens, it happens mostly at night. It can happen at any time during the daytime, or during the day, but it usually happens at night. What it is where you'll basically be laying down to go to sleep, and your legs will feel like you have to move them. You have this overwhelming urge to move them, and you can't fight that urge. There's nothing you can do to fight the urge. Your legs feel hot, and some people get burning and tingling and pain if they don't move the legs. So for me, I'll be laying there, and suddenly I get this urge to squeeze the muscles in my legs, and I have to move them. And then I'll move them, and then I'll be fine for about 45 seconds to a minute, and then I have to move again. And this goes on the whole night for me for the last couple nights, which is why my eyes are all poofy and I'm so exhausted right now. But a lot of people with MS get this and don't realize that it's restless leg syndrome. So that's part of why I'm making this one today, is to let you guys know that this is restless leg syndrome, and there's medication you can take that will help it. Gabapentin helps it, and Requip. Requip is the one that is made for restless leg syndrome, and it will really help you, and I highly recommend it. I need to get back on it. That's why I'm actually having the problem, is because I stopped taking it because my insurance was cut and I couldn't afford it without the insurance. But anyway, what it feels like I said, is you'll lay down and you have this overwhelming urge to get up and walk and move your legs. You can't sit still. It's no matter how hard you fight that feeling, you just cannot sit still. It's a really hard feeling to describe. The only thing that I can say to help when it does happen to you is to get a squirt bottle if you can, with maybe some water in it. Squirt your legs and put a fan on them, because I've found that if I cool my legs down as much as possible, it actually does help some. It'll help me get to sleep when it's happening. So that's maybe a little tip for you guys when it is happening to you, to give that a try and see if it helps you out. It did help me last night to get a little bit of sleep. So that does help. But that's what restless leg syndrome is when you are laying down and you just have that overwhelming urge and you keep flopping around, and it just feels like no matter what you do, you cannot keep your bottom half of your body still. Your legs just don't, you cannot lay still. You can't get any sleep for hours. You're just moving your legs nonstop. And that is restless leg syndrome. It's very common in MS. Magnesium helps with that. So like bananas, so it can be caused from, being low in magnesium or from a lesion in your brain. So a lot of things cause that to happen. But again, it's called restless leg syndrome. Medication called Requip helps with that. And it really will help you get some sleep. And if you have restless leg syndrome, you know how horrible it is. I wanted to follow up on my twin sister's video about bladder issues. One of the issues that we MSers have is that we have issues with incontinence and retention. Incontinence is that, and so we have to wear those special underwear. It's embarrassing and it sucks and it's part of MS. So some of us have that issue. The other one is retention. Retention means that we can no longer empty our bladder completely on our own. We have some of the urine is retained inside the bladder. My sister gets this. This is what caused her urinary tract infection that went into her bladder that made her go septic. Some of us have a hard time going to the bathroom. So basically we have to push like we're having a bowel movement just to get the urine to go out of our body. It's horrible. I have had this. And
Great day. I want to hear any more about that.
On 12, I think. Today I was going to talk to you guys about what I call is the phantom itch. Sometimes it's called the MS itch, but I call it the phantom itch because what it is basically us with MS, we get what feels like, for people without MS, it's, when you get bit by a mosquito or, poison ivy or chicken pox and you get that horrible itch that you get, we get that for no reason at all. Our body tricks us. It is nerve damage. It's part of the nerve damage. Kind of goes back to the nerve damage video that I did before. It is our nerves going all out of whack. There's nothing we can do. It kind of feels like bugs crawling on us. Sometimes it can be centered in one area. For me, that's more of what I get is in one area. I will just scratch it raw. We literally will scratch ourselves till we're bleeding, but we can't help it. It is the most intense itch that you can imagine. Some of us get it all over. It's an all over itch. We look like we're literally going crazy, like we've just dropped 100 spiders on our body. But it's the MS itch. It is a very frustrating, very itchy is the best way to describe it. It's horrible for us. My suggestion to any of you out there that have this happen to you, because any of the itch creams, don't waste your money. It's not going to work. This is not caused by any of those kind of things that cream helps, so it will not work for you. Don't waste your money. This is a nerve problem. What might work for you is a cold shower, if it's an all-over thing, or ice pack, if it's a centralized thing. What that does is that shocks your nerve back to reality. It shocks the nerve and then sends it back into normal function. It does work for me. When I have those problems, I've learned now that I just ice it, and then it stops the itching. And then if you are a person who gets it all over your body, take a shower. Some of us get it on our scalp. That's very frustrating as well. My suggestion to that is to run your head under cold water, as cold as you can tolerate. The colder, the better. This is going to shock the nerves into behaving the right way. Unfortunately, MS is not predictable. This is not always going to work. There is no magical switch that just makes it always work. But most of the time, it will. So definitely try this when you have this MS itch. If you're a family member of somebody who has this, just know that this is why we get this itching. It is a nerve problem for us. First, I wanted to start off by saying that some people Unfortunately, they have the worst possible first symptom of MS ever. They wake up and their very first symptom of MS ever is that they are blind in one eye, or both. Can you imagine that? I cannot. They never ever have a symptom of MS first, other than that they wake up blind. Fortunately, most cases, their vision ends up coming back to them. Usually what that is optic neuritis, which is that the MS is attacking their optic nerves. And after they get the steroid treatment, it ends up coming back. And luckily, that ends up not being permanent. Some people get it in other ways. My first symptom of MS, I was 19 with my son on his t-ball game. I remember looking up in the sky and seeing flashing white out of my left eye. And then all of a sudden there was black lace over my left eye. And I freaked out. I remember thinking, oh my God, I have MS. Oh my God. The reason I thought that was because that my mother at the time had MS. And that was her first MS symptom. Being 19, I remember just thinking, I'm going to ignore this completely. And that's exactly what I did. Over the years, I continued to have that symptom until I was diagnosed in 2012 at 32. And then that's when I knew, and I knew over the years that that's what it was, but I didn't want to know. It just came to a point that I could no longer ignore it. There's many vision issues that you can have with MS, that being one of them. Sometimes some people also get double vision and blurred vision. I get that as well. Usually what that is the MS attacking the muscle in the eye. It makes the muscle weaken so that the muscle can no longer focus. That's what causes the blurred vision and the double vision. And it makes it hard to see and sometimes attacks both eyes or one eye. Another thing that we get is called nystagmus. I'm probably butchering that, I'm not sure. But what that is, and I get this one also, I'm really lucky I get a lot of these, is where your eyes bounce left to right or up and down. The most common is left to right, that's what I get. What it is where I'll be reading or looking at something and suddenly my eyes will just jerk left to right. You can't have no control over it whatsoever. It happens when I'm driving, it happens all the time. Luckily mine only happens once or twice and then it'll stop. Some people it happens repetitively and then until they go to sleep or until they, are able to rest their eyes. And then usually resting your eyes helps stop it. For some people that doesn't stop it. Some people have a really hard time with it. Luckily for me, it only happens once or twice in a row and then it'll stop. Another thing that people have with the eye problems is called, let's see here. What was the other one that I was going to talk about? I can't remember what the other name of the other one that I was going to talk about. But I know that another thing that I was going to say is that another thing that we have with MS is that when we go to our neurologist, they have us do the finger test, which some of you might unfortunately know from a DUI, when they have you watch the finger when they go across. And if you are drunk or have MS, your eye cannot follow it smoothly. Your eye jerks as you watch the finger. A normal person or someone that's not under the influence can smoothly watch the finger. The problem with people with MS is that we have problems with the central nervous system and with our vision, so our eyes jerk as if we're under the influence. My suggestion to anybody with MS is please get some kind of identification or some kind of card or something in your car so that way you're never mistaken for being under the influence.
Hey, it's Dr. Berg. In this video, we're going to talk about one of the most common vitamin deficiencies, low B1. Okay, this is a tree with branches. These are symptoms. These are roots. I know it doesn't look like a tree,
Vitamin
but
B1.
That's what it is. Okay, first symptom is restless legs syndrome. That's a B1 deficiency. It's a buildup of lactic acid. Lactic acid builds up from a natural process of carbohydrate metabolism or sugar metabolism in your body. So if you're eating too much sugar or breads and pasta and cereal and crackers, all that stuff, and it can't clear it, you'll end up with restless leg. It's like a lot of nervous energy in your legs and other parts of your body. And
Yep.
if you work out and you feel sore a little too long, you could take some B1 and get rid of that soreness really fast, because this is the remedy for restless legs. If you look up low vitamin B1, a classic vitamin deficiency, like really severe, they call that beriberi. Beriberi affects the heart, and that's why the pulse rate starts going higher and higher and higher with a B1 deficiency. You also end up backing up with fluid into your legs, edema,
Yep.
from a low vitamin B1 as well,
Oh, shoot.
because the heart is weak. Another deficiency, because this controls the nerve, especially the myelin, the outside of the sheath of the nerve. If that thing is gone, if you don't have enough B1, you won't be able to build up the surrounding protective coating around the nerves. And then you get tingling and numbness in your fingers,
Yep.
hands, and feet and toes. And that's why diabetics, for example, end up with peripheral neuropathy. That's the tingling in the feet and the hands, because they are very deficient in B1. In fact, diabetics need about 15 times more B1 than a normal person. They're very, very low in B1. And when you actually give them B1 in a natural form, it actually helps lower their insulin. So it's really good for diabetics. But that's why they get those symptoms, because they run out of the B1, and that's the remedy. Okay, nightmares is a classic symptom for low B1 as well. Air hunger at night is a symptom of low B1. Coughing at night is another symptom of low B1. Calf tenderness. Pressing your calf, if it's tender, could be low B1. And nystagmus. Now, what is nystagmus? If I were to look at you right now and turn my head, but yet maintain my eyeballs are going in the opposite direction as I'm turning my head. And that's coordinated with something in your inner ear that has these little nerve endings, these little hairs in a fluid in the inner ear. It's like a little gyroscope back there. And that nerve that's connected to the ear is disrupted with a low B1, because low B1 affects the nervous system. And a nystagmus is that coordination isn't occurring, so you'll have this dancing eye. So you'll see the eye just dancing like that. That's nystagmus, but that's coming from a low B1. And then the last symptom of low B1 is the nervous energy. Like you have this, you come home at night and you're like stressed out and you can't relax, and you just feel this buildup. Or doom and gloom, okay? You have this weight over your shoulders. Take some B1 and watch how fast that goes away, simply because now the cause of low B1 would be excessive stress. When you use a lot of mental energy and physical energy, you deplete your B1 reserve. So alcohol will also deplete B1. Liver damage will deplete B1. And then, of course, the classic too much sugar, or just sugar, and I mean not too much, just you shouldn't be eating any sugar, because that's going to deplete B1. And then refined carbohydrates, and that would be the breads, pasta, cereal, crackers, biscuits. I don't recommend taking a synthetic B1 unless you're doing some type of detoxification cleanse and it's a short-term thing. You'd be much better off taking nutritional yeast. That's a more natural form, not brewer's yeast, not baker's yeast, but nutritional yeast. It's at the health food store. It comes in a container. Take a teaspoonful every single day. That's what I do. Put it in some plain yogurt or kefir. Okay, that's kind of a sour yogurt. And I usually take that in the morning, and you'll get all your B's, and you'll actually help a lot of these symptoms. So,
All right, I take vitamin B1. My mother has diabetes, and I told her to try the vitamin B1. I tried it. I just found out that I have mild pre-diabetes and high cholesterol. I know why. But anyway, so I had like the neuropathy, stinging in my feet, legs, and blah, 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 blah. And now I have it in my eyes, which leads me to believe that I have MS. Well, I have the eye problems that Heather Love Lawful the young lady that was speaking earlier, Heather Love, Leffel. She has a lot of videos on the MS problems that she has been experiencing. I don't have all of those problems. I have some of those problems. And B1 has truly helped me, but I'm still having eye problems right now. So, been taking B1. Vitamin D is also, oh, let me get the vitamin D video by Dr. Eric Berg. All right, this is enough on this video. You all can go to Dr. Eric Berg, B-E-R-G, on YouTube and learn more. But you need vitamin D and vitamin B1. Stop eating all sugar. All sugar. And what else? Anyway, sugar is the enemy.